Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhagavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here with all of you. Thank your blessings so that we can have a nice discussion today on Grantha Raj Srimad Bhagavatam. The most glorious Srimad Bhagavatam in this month of book distribution marathon month. What time did the class goes until?
9.
9? Okay. So I understand we're reading from Canto 4, chapter number 8, text number 57. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home. And I need a little light. Svaichavatara chariter Achintya nija mayaya Krishyati uttama shlokas Tadaye didayangamam Svechavatara chariter Achintya nija mayaya Karishyate uttama shlokas Tadaye didayangamam Svechavatara charitair Achintya nija mayaya Karishyati uttama shlokas Tadaye didayangamam. Svaicha, by his own supreme will. Avatar, incarnation. Charite, activities. Achintya, inconceivable. Nija Mayaya, by his own potency. Karishyati, performs. Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat, that, diet, one should meditate. Hridayam Gamam, very attractive. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. My dear Dhruva, besides worshiping the deity and chanting the mantra 3 times a day, you should meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His different incarnations, as exhibited by His supreme will and personal potencies. Please repeat. My dear Dhruva, besides worshiping the deity and chanting the mantra 3 times a day, you should meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His different incarnations, as exhibited by His supreme will and personal potencies. Purport. Devotional service comprises 9 prescribed practices: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving, offering everything to the deity, etc. Here, Dhruva Maharaj is advised not only to meditate on the form of the Lord, but to think of his transcendental pastimes in different incarnations. Mayavadi philosophers take the incarnation of the Lord to be in the same category as the ordinary living entity. This is a great mistake. The incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead is not forced to act by the material laws of nature. The word svicha is used to indicate that he appears out of his supreme will. The conditioned soul is forced to accept a particular type of body according to karma given by the given by the laws of material nature under the direction of the Supreme Lord. But when the Lord appears, he is not forced by the dictation of material nature. He appears as he likes by his own internal potency. That is the difference. The conditioned soul accepts a particular type of body, such as the body of a hog, by his work and by the superior authority of material nature. But when Lord Krishna appears in the incarnation of a boar, he is not the same kind of hog as an ordinary animal. Krishna appears as Varaha avatar in his expansive feature, which cannot be compared to an ordinary hog's. His appearance and disappearance are inconceivable to us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that he appears by his own internal potency for the protection of the devotees and the annihilation of the non-devotees. A devotee should always consider that Krishna does not appear as an ordinary human being or ordinary beast. His appearance as Varaha Murti, or a horse, or a tortoise, is an exhibition of his internal potency. In the Brahma Samhita, it says, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pati Bhavatibhaya. One should not mistake the appearance of the Lord as a human being or a beast to be on the same as the birth of an ordinary conditioned soul who is forced to appear by the laws of nature, whether an animal, as a human being, or as a demigod. This kind of thinking is offensive. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has condemned the Mayavadis as offensive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of their thinking that the Lord and the conditioned soul, conditioned living entities, are one and the same. Narada advises Dhruva to meditate on the pastimes of the Lord, which is as good as meditation on concentrating one's mind on the form of the Lord. As meditation on of any form of the Lord is valuable, so is chanting of different names of the Lord, such as Hari, Govinda, and Narayana. But in this age, we are especially advised to chant the Hare Krishna mantra as enunciated in the Shastra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Stram Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sate Devi Harimang Pre Pre Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kupasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'll just repeat the verse again. My dear Dhruva, besides worshipping the deity and chanting the mantra 3 times a day, you should meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations, as exhibited by his supreme will and personal potencies. So, once again, thank you for this opportunity, and we'll have a sure I'll discuss for a few some time, and then hopefully have some nice discussion and a conversation about this beautiful pastime and verse. So this is, of course, the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. It is a very famous pastime. It is one of the most cherished pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is explained that he would daily study Srimad Bhagavatam with Gadadhar Pandit in the Tota Gopinath temple. And they would read this pastime over and over and over again. As soon as it was end, Chaitanya Maharaj said, let's do it again. This pastime of Dhruva Maharaj and the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj were Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two most favorite pastimes. And it's further explained that Gadadhar Pandit would read and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear, and they would both go into ecstasy. And the pages of Gadadhar Pandit's Srimad Bhagavatam were running because of the tears that were flowing from his eyes. The ink was being smudged, but still they would continue to repeat these wonderful pastimes. So it's very nice for all of us to be able to enjoy these pastimes following in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I wanted to just something that struck me as we were having a conversation yesterday about surrender in this pastime, not related to this verse, but just that happened previously. It's quite notable that, when Dhruva Maharaj was offended by the queen and the king for not being able to sit on his lap, he became fiery and very angry. And his mother, Queen Suniti, also was quite fiery and upset. But she understood that actually what was spoken to him was not untrue, that it was only by the will of the Supreme Lord that his desire could be fulfilled. And Queen Suniti shows extraordinary surrender and faith in Krishna. That she told Dhruva that only Krishna can relieve your distress. Now, for a mother to say that to her child, that takes quite faith in Krishna. But even further, she told and encouraged him, a 5-year-old boy, to go deep into the forest to find Krishna, because that is where the great personalities go to find the Lord. Now you can imagine, a mother of a 5-year-old, she's constantly taking care of everything for the child, what he will eat, what he will wear, when he should take rest, where he should sleep, if he gets sick, what medicines to administer. Every little detail a mother is meditating on. And yet she realizes that whatever protection and love I can give, it is a tiny fraction of the protection and maintenance that the Supreme Personality of Godhead could give. So with great faith, she was able to send her child deep into the forest. And it's a very nice instruction for us about truly having faith in the protection of the Lord. We often wonder and worry about what's going to happen to me, what will happen tomorrow if this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen. And we see this same, faith in Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, in the early days of the movement in New York, he was running his program at 26 2nd Avenue. And I remember reading in this Lilamrita, and it stunned me. And it's small, but very significant. When the program was taking place, he would go to the market, and he would go and acquire a boga to cook for those who would come. And he would literally empty his pocket. So he would spend every last penny he had on all the boga he could acquire to cook the feast for those who would come. But he had no certainty that donations would come that evening to be able to feed him tomorrow. But he had full faith that Krishna would provide. And we hear Srila Prabhupada speak about this in Nectar of Instruction and Ishwar Upanishad, about how one should not acquire more than necessary. one should only take what's sufficient for today and worry about tomorrow and depend on the Lord. But Srila Prabhupada, in his own action, had so much faith that Krishna would provide for him, that he was literally willing to empty everything he had on that day and worry about tomorrow later. And it showed, extraordinary faith. And of course, that faith and confidence in Krishna was reciprocated far beyond what anybody could have ever dreamed of. And so I thought I would just comment a little bit about that, and we can try to draw some inspiration to have true confidence in the fact that Krishna is truly our only real maintainer. We think we are doing something to maintain ourselves, but in reality, we are 100% dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So coming back to this verse now, text number 57, Narada Muni has been giving Dhruva Maharaj some instructions about how to engage in meditation. And he explained first that he should meditate on the form of the Lord. And then for many verses, I'm sure that you all have been reading, he has been giving very beautiful and detailed descriptions of the form of the Lord, so that one doesn't, kind of concoct their own understanding of what the form of the Lord is. But relying on Shastra, one can engage in active meditation on the form of the Lord. And then he provided him with the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, to chant as part of his process of devotional service. And so here, now Dhruva Maharaj is being encouraged to not only think about the form of the Lord, but from the form of the Lord, to meditate on the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this is advancing his meditation, from the names to the forms to now the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord. And we know that Krishna has these 4 unique qualities that nobody else possesses. The Jiva Tattva possesses up to 50 qualities. The Shambhu Tattva, Lord Shiva, possesses up to 55 qualities. And Lord Vishnu possesses 60 of these principal qualities. Of course, Lord Vishnu and Krishna are unlimited, but of these principal qualities. And Krishna possesses 4 unique qualities. One being his Venu, his flute. The sweetness of his transcendental flute captivates the hearts and minds of everyone. When the birds are flying in the air and Krishna's playing his flutes, they just stop and they become stone-like. And the stones, when they hear Krishna's flutes, they begin flopping and moving. And so inanimate objects become animate, and animate objects become inanimate when Krishna's flute is played. He has, of course, this Rupa Madhurya, this very beautiful form, such beauty. Nothing can compare. Actually, we know Krishna is the source of everything. So whatever beauty we find in this world, it is coming from Lord Krishna himself. He has his devotees, the interaction between Krishna and his devotees that are so sweet. And then finally, the 4th unique quality is his pastimes, his Lila Madhurya. Krishna's pastimes, his activities are so sweet and so captivating that they inspire one to fully surrender to Krishna and to take to the process of devotional service. We're just coming off the month of Kartik, where we get to celebrate so many of Krishna's beautiful pastimes, quite appropriately here, our most beloved Damodar pastime, and many others. And so these pastimes serve as the opportunity to captivate the hearts of all of us. And when our hearts are captivated, then this shmaranam, this remembering Krishna, becomes very easy. And so, Krishna's interactions with his devotees, particularly the residents of Vrindavan, they show us that, when Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita, the Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam, to only surrender to Krishna. We know in the residents of Vrindavan, what is their only shelter when things go awry? It's Krishna. Some scary demon comes, who do they run to? Krishna. The torrential rains of the Samvartaka clouds, when Lord Indra lost his consciousness, who do they run to? Krishna. The 7-year-old boy is their shelter, their only shelter. And this is what we learn from the residents of Rana, how to surrender to Krishna. So these pastimes give us the confidence to be able to surrender to the Lord and the inspiration to surrender nicely. So let us discuss today 3 topics. This appearance of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada dedicates most of the purport to this appearance of Krishna and how it differs from our appearance, so that we don't make the same mistakes that the Mayavadis make in confusing the appearance of Krishna in our own. So we'll spend some time discussing that. And then how to ignite this remembering of Krishna. At least speaking for myself, even while the process of chanting japa, find it very difficult to remember Krishna. So how we can, increase our potential of remembering the Supreme Lord. And then maybe, some of the sweet pastimes that we can meditate on to give us this further faith and surrender of Krishna. So this appearance of Krishna, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, this janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvaha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mamiti sarjana. It's a very interesting verse because Krishna is telling that if you just understand Krishna's janma and karma, his appearance and activities, you can achieve liberation. The jnanis, the yogis, they're going through extraordinary effort, great intense meditation and so much difficulty to try to achieve liberation. And Krishna here is saying, if you just understand my appearance and activities, that is sufficient to never have to come back here again, to achieve liberation and go back home, back to Godhead. So why? Well, the reason is quite simple. That if we truly understand the extraordinary nature of his appearance and activities, there's only one logical conclusion. That we as tiny, infinitesimal living entities should surrender to this Supreme Person. That is the only logical conclusion when we truly understand the nature of those appearances and activities, is to surrender to Krishna. And so that's the opportunity that we have. And we know that Krishna appears in a way very different from us. Did any of us get to choose our birthday? Anybody ever get to choose our parents? Where we are going to appear? Anybody got to choose? No. Our appearance, as Srila Prabhupada comments in this purport, is based on the laws of material nature. Based on our karma, what we have done previously, we acquire some form today. And if we perform certain activities and end up in a hog's body, that is forced upon us by material nature. But how does Krishna appear? Does he get to choose where he appears? If he wants to appear in a prison house, can he appear in a prison house? Yes. He gets to choose when he appears. He chooses to whom or from whom he appears. He has full control of everything. So this is the comparison between us and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A complete 180-degree difference. Even the activities of the Lord. The activities of the Lord, Krishna manifests these different activities according to his own choosing. Krishna shows in Vrindavan how he starts out as a young baby, and then he's crawling in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and then he's walking around and tending to the calves. He's becoming like Vatsapal, and then he grows up further and becomes the cowherd boy, and like this he's growing. And then, we also do that. We started out, playing in the home, and then went to some schooling and this. But our aging, our progress through this body is forced by time. Can anybody stop the aging process? We're all trying. We want to bring some, old age ointment, put some wrinkle cream here, there, just trying to stop the effect of old age. But we cannot. But Krishna, when he grows up, It happens by his own desire. Today I shall grow a little bit. Today I should show a little more mature features. And that's how it happens. And our acharyas commented, actually, Krishna progresses at a rate 50% faster than the normal human being. So what he can do at the age of 3, typically are doing at the age of 2, like this, or sorry, the other way around. What he's doing at the age of 3, others are doing at the age of 5. He is growing much faster, but he grows by his own will, by his own control. And why does he do this? To give variety of enjoyment to the devotees of Vrindavan, to his devotees. They enjoy seeing him go through these different stages of life, celebrating his new accomplishments. But we should not mistake the fact that Krishna is fully potent in his entire existence. He doesn't grow into the ability to destroy these demons. And he proves this very early in his venture here, right? Just a few days old, the giant demon Putana came, and he very easily and quickly disposed of her. She was such a giant demon that she changed the landscape of Vrindavan and formed a new mountain horizon. Such a giant form, but he is yet just a few days old. So Krishna comes fully empowered, and his progress through life is not like ours. But the Mayavadis, they cannot contemplate this. They cannot accept this. Right? They apply their own material conditioning to that of Krishna. If I can't do that, how Krishna can? If I can't lift a hill for 7 days, of course the Supreme Lord cannot. And this is born out of envy. And Srila Prabhupada comments in this purport that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has condemned the Mayavadis because of this offensive attitude to the Supreme Lord. What is envy? Envy is a very evil, deeply rooted anartha within the conditioned soul. And envy, we often confuse with jealousy. Jealousy is, you have something and I would like it also. That's jealousy. You have a nice new iPhone, oh, I also want that iPhone. But envy goes one step further. Is you have this iPhone, nice new iPhone, I want it, and I don't want you to have it. This is the depth of envy. And of course, we have this envy in our hearts. It's what brought us here to the material world. And so we must work through the process of our sadhana to purify of this envy. But because the Mayavadis are full of this envy, they cannot accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that we are his eternal servants. This is just a little bit about the activities of the Lord. Now, the activities of Krishna and the different incarnations, they must be understood by us through the pure devotees, through the acharyas. Because if we try to understand the activities of the Lord on our own, we'll be confused. Just like if I am not a jeweler and somebody shows me all kinds of stones, I'll not be able to determine which are the valuable jewels, which are the unvaluable jewels, which are the ones that are perfect, which are the fakes. I'm not trained in that. I'll not have the ability to do so. So in order to understand Krishna's pastimes, we must go to the experts, to the pure devotees of the Lord. Our acharyas provide so many commentaries on these different pastimes to ensure that we understand them in the proper light. How can we understand that Krishna is stealing butter? How can we understand that Krishna, stole the garments of the young gopis and made them emerge from the river unclothed? How can we understand that Lord Ram banished Mother Sita after returning, from Lanka? These things, if we try to understand with our own materially conditioned heart, we will draw faulty conclusions. But if we rely wholly on the commentary of our acharyas, then we actually can get the real purport of these pastimes, and they serve as a great inspiration for us to surrender to the Supreme Lord and to render devotional service to Him. And we should remember, great personalities before us have been confused by the activities of the Lord. Lord Brahma himself, and the whole Vimohan Lila, became bewildered by the activities of the Lord. Of course, Lord Indra, thought Krishna to be some ordinary talkative boy and forgot that he was his supreme master. Now, even Lord Shiva, chose to become bewildered by Mohini Murti. So, if these great personalities, become bewildered by the activities of the Lord, we should understand that our only hope to understand them is through the eyes and commentary of our great acharyas. Then we can properly understand these activities. So Krishna appears in unlimited forms. In Brahma Samhita we see that as one cannot count the waves of ocean, the waves in an ocean, one cannot count the number of incarnations or avatars of the Supreme Lord. He comes over and over and over again for the purpose of Shishi Radha Damodar, Shishi Gaurnita, Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subramani, Jai Srila Prabhupada. He comes for the purpose of trying to inspire us to go back home, back to Godhead. And so there are different types of avatars. We have the Purusha avatars, the Leela avatars, the Manvanta avatars, Guna avatars, Shaktivesh avatars, Yuga avatars. So there are 6 categories of avatars, but there are unlimited numbers. We sometimes think when we talk about Dasha avatars, this is like a sampling, just a for example. But actually the number of incarnations are unlimited. So now Dhruva Maharaj here is being asked to meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Lord. So we know in our study of Nectar of Devotion that remembering Krishna and never forgetting Him, this is the foundational principle of bhakti. Right? Smarta vavir satatam Vishnu Vishnu tama nachutati sarve veda nishidya etayor eva kinkaraha. That Krishna should always be remembered and never forgotten. Every rule and regulation, every process of devotional service, it should be a servant to these 2 principles. To always remember Krishna and never forget Him. So Srila Rupa Goswami gives us these 64 angas of bhakti. We should remember, no pun intended, but we should remember, these are intended to help us remember Krishna. If in the practice of our devotional service, we are not remembering Krishna, we should understand that we are missing the foundational principle of devotional service. Rupa Goswami also tells us in Nectar of Instruction, in this 8th verse, what is the essence of all advice? To remember Krishna in His names, forms, pastimes, and qualities. 24/7. Not 2/7, 2.5/7, 24/7. This is the essence of all advice. So this remembering Krishna's pastimes, this is the foundation. Even Krishna Himself tells us, right, in how to perform pure devotional service, man mana bhavad mad bhakto, right? Think of me. It's the first one. The first of the 4 parts of devotional service. He says, think of me. So this is the important part. But we know it's difficult, right? In chanting our japa, how many rounds are we actually fully meditating on the Lord? Even if 1 round we can meditate on the Lord, it may be success. So it's difficult. So how to ignite that attraction? Well, we know for a businessman or a wealthy person, is it difficult for them to think about their money and their business? For a mother, is it difficult for them to think about their young child? Because there is attraction, there is love. Right? So this remembering, it follows attraction. So when we have deep-rooted attraction for Krishna, this remembering naturally occurs. So how to increase this attraction for Krishna? Well, this attraction is lying dormant within all of our hearts. And it is through the process of good sadhana, sadhana bhakti, that one can awaken this dormant love of God, right? This kriti sadhyat bhavat sadhyat bhavasa sadarabhida nitya siddhasya bhavyasya prakutam riddhi sadhyate. In the heart, this pure love, this deep, intense attraction for Krishna is residing. And we simply have to bring it out. But if we are practicing our sadhana, just going through the motions, then we'll not have, it'll take us a long time to achieve this effect. So our practice of sadhana should be purposeful, intentful, with the goal of awakening this dormant attraction. And if there's attraction, then we will naturally be able to remember Krishna. Just as that mother doesn't have to plan time, okay, at this time of day I will think of my child. It just happens naturally. So this is our opportunity. So Srila Prabhupada opens this verse talking about the 9 prescribed practices, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam in particular. He doesn't list them all, but he lists most of them. So this Shravanam, this hearing process, this hearing is extremely important for us to awaken this attraction. Right? If we think about what marketing companies do. So if you have a company and you're selling some product, what do? You get people to hear about your product. Why do you want them to hear about your product? So that the consumer will think about it and develop this desire to have it. It is through hearing that our initial attraction begins. Somebody tells us about some nice new prasad preparation they had. We hear about that, and what happens to us? We have a desire to have it. So this hearing process, it is the first process. By hearing about Krishna, and of course hearing includes reading Srila Prabhupada's books, but by hearing about these pastimes, our attraction will grow. And it is the great qualification. Actually, our advancement in devotional service can be measured by the intensity by which we want to hear. You know that Srila Prabhupada, he had a strong inclination to hear when he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on the Vrajmandal Parikrama. The devotees in the evening were given an option to go and visit some sites and take darshan in some temples, or stay back and hear from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so Srila Prabhupada decided to stay back and hear. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur began to speak, and he was speaking, and he went on for hours. I promise I'll not go on for hours. But he was going on in a long conversation, and slowly, as the evening was progressing, devotees were retiring back to their camps to take rest. And by the end, Srila Prabhupada describes, it was just him and a few very senior sannyasi disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. After a few days, Srila Prabhupada returned. He only went for one day, but after some time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came to Allahabad, where Srila Prabhupada was, and he was presented as a candidate for initiation. And what did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur see and comment on to qualify Srila Prabhupada? He said, "Oh, this boy likes to hear." He noted Srila Prabhupada's attachment to hearing during that parikrama and gave him initiation there. So we can see that this intensity and attraction for hearing will help us significantly in our devotional service. Of course, from Shravanam, when we hear about something that we're excited about, then what do? We speak about it. Kirtanam, we start chanting, we start speaking about it. And if we are hearing about something and we are speaking about something, then Vishnu Smaranam happens as a natural byproduct. So this process of chanting and hearing is the precursor to being able to remember the activities of the Lord. And when we experience this hearing in a pure state, a fully purified heart, what happens? 2 ears are not sufficient. Rupa Goswami, or specifically Prithu Maharaj, begs for the benediction. What? Eternal residence in the spiritual world? Royal opulence? Great strength? No. He says, give me millions of ears so that I can hear the transcendental nectarian pastimes of you from the mouths of your pure devotees. How many of us have gone to the Lord and say, give me millions of ears? But this is what happens when we purify the heart, that the hearing becomes so sweet, so relishable, so pleasing, that we can't get enough hearing. And 2 ears are not sufficient. And the same with the tongue. When the tongue purifies and we come to the platform of chanting the holy names purely, the Shuddha Nam, we experience Krishna dancing on our tongue. And it's so sweet that we want to keep chanting more and more and more. And thus, one tongue is not sufficient. We need millions of tongues. Today, at least again speaking for myself, I am in the platform of finishing my rounds. What is finishing my rounds? It means moving on to something else. But in the pure state of chanting, one experiences such bliss that they never want to finish. And this is how one can 24/7 be engaged in remembering Krishna. Another comment I'll make on the remembering piece. In our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, there's a special emphasis on remembering Krishna. This remembering in the mood of separation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed us this Vipralamba Seva. It is an intensified attraction to Krishna. When we are separated from the Lord, our attraction to Him ignites and increases exponentially. In the US we say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. So this intense separation and remembering Krishna is one of the principal features of our sampradaya. We see in the glorification the Sat Goswami Astakam, Hey Radhe Vajadevike Chalalite, Hey Nando Sunakutaha, Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Patare Kaleni Manikuta. Hey Radha, hey Krishna, where are you? It's constant, searching out for Krishna, remembering Krishna in this mood of separation. It is one of the deep features of our sampradaya, and it gives us this very strong taste. Sometimes I know, when we read about these devotees in separation to Krishna, it seems like it's like torture. They are agonizing in this separation. They are, becoming emaciated and not able to perform any activities, and some are even, leaving their bodies in this separation. But we should understand that it is actually bliss. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we see that this example is given to us of how, this Vipralamba Seva, it is actually great bliss, though we read it as kind of devastation of heart. And the example is given, if you take an ice cube and you put it on your skin, at some point that ice will begin to create a burning sensation. Though it is cold, it will feel hot. Like this, though it seems externally like there is great, devastation and disappointment in being separated from Krishna, actually it's a great intensification of one's love. So this is one of the unique features of the Lord. So just finally, in conclusion, before hopefully we can have some discussion, remembering some of these, very sweet pastimes of the Lord are very helpful for us in increasing our surrender and whatnot. So, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and studying this, it gives us this great opportunity to intensify our love. If we look at how Srila Prabhupada presented his books, he wrote Krishna book even before completing his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, because he wanted to make sure if by some chance he wasn't able to complete his translation, at least he would leave us with a detailed description of all of Krishna's wonderful pastimes, because he knew this was an important part of awakening and increasing our love for Krishna. So these pastimes are very, very beautiful. And just, a couple of other comments, in terms of our hearing, we talk about attentive chanting, but often attentive hearing is a great opportunity for us to increase this attraction for Krishna. And of course, hearing includes reading. One tip that I got that I really liked was, each time after completing your reading, your daily reading, whatever your daily reading is, make a commitment to write down 3 things that struck you about your reading. By just knowing that at the end of this session, I'm going to have to write 3 things down, the level of attention in what we are reading goes up significantly. So instead of just reading to kind of get through the time I've allotted for my reading, if I know I have to write 3 things down, whatever they might be, you'll find it's an amazing, even if you never read those 3 things again, you never share it with any, no problem. But just the process of writing down 3 things that struck you in your reading, our attention in that will go up significantly and make us, help us progress much more rapidly on that. So I wanted to conclude with that one hopefully helpful tip. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grahantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Any corrections, clarifications, comments, discussion we can have today? Yes, Hare Krishna.
So, while doing any action, so while you perform any duties, so while the person's first thought is that this is but at the same time, I have observed that this very silent voice, which is really just coming from in front of me, but still says that I should be appreciated. I am doing it. And I see the difference over the years that I'm able to at least observe it. That there is this parallel noise within, which is telling me while I want to be fully dedicated to myself out of the vision, it's still that next thing is always there that I do. But I'm just able to observe it and do nothing about it. Because I want for next time for not have that noise. And people will be able to make it with full intent. And say, how do I guess pass that bridge and eventually
So the first thing is, Krishna is hearing your desire. Because you said that you want to overcome this I, me, mine. And how do you know Krishna is hearing your desire? Because you now see it. When we see our anarthas, when we see it, that is actually a sign of Krishna's mercy. He is blessing us. Because if I don't see my anartha, I don't see what's there, what is my hope to overcome it? So actually, we know that we have received the blessings of Krishna when we start to see our faults, our imperfections, because that is the first step to overcoming them. Overcoming this pride, this false ego, this ahankar, this I, me, and mine, we should understand that it's a deeply rooted anartha. Right? We have been conditioned for millions of lifetimes thinking this. And now for a few years, maybe a few months, maybe even a few decades, I've been working to undo it. So we have to give it some time. But if we dedicate ourselves sincerely to our sadhana, right? It is through sadhana bhakti, this practice of devotional service, that we are going to purify the heart. And that's why we see that, in our 9 steps to Krishna Prema, it starts with Shraddha, some faith. And then we come to some association, that faith brings us to association. And association brings us into the practice, the bhajana kriya, the practice of devotional service. And what's the conclusion of the practice of devotional service? Anartha nivritti. We purify the heart of all of these anarthas, these impurities. So while you're cooking for Krishna, remind yourself, who is enabling this cooking to happen? Who is providing the bhoga that you're using? Who is giving the intelligence to know what comes first, what goes next? Who is providing all of that? It is no one but the Supreme Lord. Right? And so when that I, me, mine comes in, it's okay, but recognize it and say, how should I look at that situation, that same situation, in the right perspective, even after the fact? So after I've, performed some, we often talk about this in anger. People talk about wanting to overcome anger. So when the next time you become angry, step back from it and think why I became angry, how I should have looked at that situation. Sure, I didn't do that in the moment, but by analyzing it on a post-mortem basis, we will increase the likelihood that in the future, when I encounter that same situation, I'll be able to control that dynamic. So in the same way, whether it's anger, whether it's pride, whether it's envy, these are all things that we all have. Think about how I should think about that. But our progress in it is ultimately based in the quality of our sadhana. The better we chant our rounds, the better we read Srila Prabhupada's books, the more intensely we render devotional service, the quicker we will purify from it. There is no other way. That is. But consider yourself blessed because you're seeing those impurities. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about that we discussed about the difference between jealousy and envy. So when we travel from the spiritual world, so
Let's explain it. It's envy. We went to Krishna. Why you? Why not me?
but we don't want that the Lord
We don't what?
Lord also travel from position of being Lord.
So,
You mentioned that in envy, we don't want that other person to have it.
yes, but the Lord never fell from his position. He is the Supreme Lord. He is infallible. But our consciousness became polluted.
That's why it's jealousy, not envy.
No, envy is the heart, not the result. The envy is my desire that I want and you don't. But it doesn't mean you don't have it. I may want the iPhone you have and you not to have it, but you still may retain your iPhone. So I may have envy, but that doesn't affect your position. Right?
Just Mayavati wanted to work with the
Yes.
They want the same position as Lord.
But they're denying the supreme position of the Lord. They're saying, you are not supreme. You are one of us. We are all one of you. And so they're denying the superiority of the Lord. So they want him not to have that position. That's why it's envy. It's okay? Last question in the back. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Point that you don't just need to read, but reading feeling so like reading into 3 points. My question is today when you go for a job, not time spending in an office. It's not that for the whole time period we are working, we are engaging like article work. Some like half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours we do get where we buffer time, as in that in my reading of those books, I have not been able to follow that series.
You have not been able to, I'm sorry, what was the last?
I'm not being able to like keep myself to stick to that commitment. Any practical.
So another English problem, where there's a will, there's a way, right? So we have to intensify our desire, our commitment to it, and that will follow. So our inability to execute on that often is because we have a desire, but it's not strong enough. Do we have any problem staying committed to taking prasadam? Because there's a strong desire and will for it. So it happens. It happens. Right? The discipline that you're seeking, we have to intensify our desire and ultimately, make it happen. You're in control of it. And take forth that sincerity, that effort, Again, Goswami tells us, Utsaha Nishchaya, we have to be enthusiastic, we have to be determined. And Prabhupada translates Utsahan to say, endeavor with intelligence. As soon as I do something that I didn't want to do, that means I didn't use intelligence in that endeavor. If we have an appreciation for how valuable our time is, then we'll be very mindful not to waste even a moment. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna and tells all of us, don't preach this message to the envious. Acharya's comment, why he says that? Because he doesn't want us to be waste our time. He's valuing our time. But we don't value our time. Tomorrow. What's the harm scrolling a few more minutes on Facebook? What's the harm, this stuff. And so we have to be very disciplined with our time. A great example of that is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If you read his daily schedule, how he used every moment of his day. And so our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, didn't waste even a millisecond of time. Right? So we can become inspired by them and stay determined on the path, because it's a good idea that you're hoping to execute on, and then pray to Shri Radha Damodar for the strength to make it happen. Okay? Yes, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare.
For so beautifully taken all the points and actually touched upon all the major points of the philosophy. And we started with that very important point of faith, like how Smriti has such a strong faith that she encouraged her to go deep in the forest, and she has faith that any mother cannot provide affection, Krishna doesn't can provide. So my question is, how to get that strong faith and deep faith in the Lord? The second part of the question I have is that does the faith, this sort of faith also is kind of giving an excuse that I am choosing for my duty to protect the child and putting that duty on the Supreme Lord that he can do that. And I'm the sheep of faith. I'm not doing it myself. I'm putting that faith that.
Let me answer the second part first. So faith is not a license to be lazy. That is the first. Our faith in Krishna's protection is not a license to be lazy or foolish. I know Krishna will protect, so I'm okay to walk out on the highway and whatever happens, happens. No. That is not intelligence in faith. That is not surrendering to Krishna. So Krishna tells Arjuna in chapter 11, he says that he calls Arjuna Savya Sachin. And he tells Arjuna that you should understand that you work according to my plan. But you do your part. And by referring to Arjuna as Savya Sachin, he's referring that Arjuna is a very talented person who can shoot arrows both left-handed and right-handed. But though it's my plan, Krishna is saying, you have to do your part and use those talents in my plan. You know, earlier in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Vigato Jvara, that you fight without lethargy. Don't be lethargic. So yes, Krishna is our maintainer. Krishna is the ultimate doer. His plan will reign supreme. So what is our part? Our part is to put forth the effort to our best of our ability. Krishna has given us these gifts to perform actions. We should do so according to his plan. But to not use our abilities, to not use our capabilities, and to sit idle and wait for Krishna is not utilizing and showing respect to the capabilities Krishna has given us.
Yeah, this point is understood, but then there is also confusion that what point is my duty? Sometimes we are able to understand that how much I have to push on to execute my part, and from each point over the goal is of Krishna. Sometimes that is that very basic line. So that point you have to
The line is black and white. Your duty is to put forth the effort. The result is Krishna's. The result is Krishna's. Our responsibility in book distribution is to go out and put the hours in. Whether the books go or not, that is between Krishna and that person who is being encountered. Of course, we want to use our intelligence to find out how we can, improve our execution to do more. But my concern should be, did I put in the effort? And that's where my duty stops. The result is Krishna's. And remember, there is no such thing as failure. What is failure? I was speaking yesterday, the day before on this. What is failure? Failure is only when my plan doesn't match Krishna's plan. Because Krishna's plan is always supreme and perfect. So if something doesn't happen that I want to happen, I should recognize, wait a minute, that is because my plan was presented. But Krishna's plan is better. So there is no such thing as failure. So our duty is put forth the best of effort and stop there. Result is Krishna's. If something manifests from my effort, Krishna wanted it to. If something didn't manifest from my effort, that is also Krishna's plan. So that is how we have to do. And our anxiety, our stress should be only over our input. Whether I can protect my child or not, I cannot. But I can put forth my effort. And if it happens, that's Krishna's will. And if it doesn't, that's also Krishna's will. Is that okay?
how to get that strong faith that in every situation, Krishna is
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Chant our rounds very nicely, and that faith will develop. Remember, faith is not a light switch. I either have it or I don't. It's progressive. It grows, right? As we go from Kanishta Adhikari to Madhyama Adhikari to Uttama, what happens? Our faith solidifies. How faith solidifies? By knowledge and practice. Read Srila Prabhupada's books, chant your rounds nicely, study our pastimes, and our faith will solidify. No other magic formula. You cannot buy it on Amazon. Anything else? Thank you. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Hare Krishna.